Right now, nearly 5.4 billion people are connected to the internet. Banks process $9 trillion in digital transactions every day. Airplanes fly around the planet guided by satellite data. Hospitals access patient records. Power grids are managed by automated systems. The entire modern world runs on an invisible infrastructure. Now imagine it disappears. Not slow, not unstable. It disappears. Every server, every satellite link, every fiber optic cable, silent. No Wi-Fi, no 4G, no cloud, no signal. What you are about to watch is a real-time, hour-by-hour analysis of what happens when the internet disappears. It's not science fiction. It's not a movie. This is based on documented system failures, government emergency reports, and infrastructure vulnerability studies. And when you see how quickly it all collapses, you'll never look at your phone the same way again. This is not a video about losing Netflix. This is a video about what happens when the invisible backbone of civilization is ripped away in an instant, and what that means for your food, your money, your safety, and your survival. We will go hour by hour, then day by day. And by the end, you will understand something that most people will never think about until it's too late. The modern world is not built to survive without the internet. It was never designed with that contingency in mind. Let's start at hour zero. It starts quietly. A notification doesn't load. A web page spins. A message shows not delivered. Most people assume it's their Wi-Fi router. They restart it. Nothing changes. Then they try their mobile data. Same thing, no signal, no connection. They check social media to see if anyone else is having the issue. But social media doesn't load either. In the first 90 seconds of an internet blackout, the average person's reaction is confusion, not panic. Because we've been trained to expect brief outages. We assume it will come back. But this time, it doesn't. In those first 90 seconds, here is what has already happened behind the scenes. The New York Stock Exchange's automated trading systems have frozen. The exchange processes over $22 billion in trades per day, all of it dependent on real-time internet data feeds. The moment connectivity drops, the entire system locks. Not gracefully, it locks. Domain name system servers, the phone books of the internet, have gone dark. Every website, every app, every online service that relies on DNS to route traffic is now unreachable. That includes banking apps, hospital networks, logistics platforms, government databases, and 911 dispatch systems in cities that modernized to VoIP communications. Global communication networks that carry 95% of all international data, undersea fiber optic cables, have gone silent. There are approximately 400 of these cables crisscrossing the ocean floor, carrying 10 terabytes of data per second on a normal day. Today, they carry nothing. The world is still physically intact, but it has already gone deaf, dumb, and blind. 60 minutes have passed, and the financial system, the engine of global commerce, is already broken. Here's what most people don't realize. Money in the modern world isn't paper. It isn't gold. It's data. It's numbers on servers. If there's no internet connectivity, those numbers can't move. Card payments fail globally. Every point-of-sale terminal, every credit card reader, every contactless payment system, every online checkout requires real-time authorization over the internet. Without the internet, there's no authorization. Your card is declined. Not because you don't have cash, but because the system can't verify it. In the United States alone, 83% of all consumer transactions are cashless. In Sweden, that number is 98%. In Australia, 91%. The moment internet connectivity is lost, the vast majority of commerce in developed countries stops completely. ATMs, which everyone assumes are self-sufficient, are not. Modern ATMs rely on internet connectivity to validate withdrawals against central bank records. They stop dispensing cash minutes after an outage. People rushing to ATMs find them either already offline or running out of cash quickly, while lines form around the block. Interbank settlement systems, the networks through which banks transfer money to each other, rely on platforms like SWIFT, which processes $5 trillion in transactions per day. SWIFT's messaging platform requires internet infrastructure. Without it, international wire transfers are impossible. Banks cannot settle transactions. Funds cannot cross borders. The Federal Reserve's payment systems, FedWire and FedACH, process over 800,000 transactions worth $4 trillion every business day. They stop working. For the first time in modern history, the financial system has no plan B. There are contingency plans for cyber attacks. There are contingency plans for failures of individual institutions. There is no emergency plan for the total loss of the global internet. It was never considered feasible enough to justify planning for it. In that first hour, billions of dollars in commercial transactions were frozen mid-operation. Companies cannot pay suppliers. Suppliers cannot confirm delivery. Employees cannot receive their salaries. And governments cannot issue emergency payments. The economy is not in recession. It has simply stopped. At the very moment the financial system is freezing, something far more immediately dangerous is happening, 10,668 meters above you. On a typical day, there are approximately 45,000 commercial flights in the air over the United States alone. Globally, that number exceeds 100,000. Each of these aircraft relies on a network of interconnected digital systems, many of which require internet connectivity to function. Air traffic control centers around the world use internet-connected systems to share flight data, weather information, and collision avoidance alerts. The moment internet connectivity is lost, these shared data streams stop. Controllers can still communicate with pilots via radio, but the situational awareness software, the screens that show each aircraft's position in real time, begins to degrade immediately. GPS, Global Positioning System, is not the internet, but the interpretation and distribution of GPS data depend on ground stations and internet-connected data networks. Within 30 minutes of a total internet blackout, the practical usefulness of GPS for commercial aviation begins to deteriorate. Navigation systems that rely on real-time GPS correction signals, called WAAS, Wide Area Augmentation System, lose their accuracy. The FAA issues an immediate ground stop order. No new aircraft can take off. But the 100,000 aircraft already in the air can't simply land at the nearest airport. Many are over oceans. Many are at cruising altitude over remote terrain. Controllers begin the meticulous process of landing each aircraft manually, using radio communication and paper-based contingency procedures that most younger air traffic controllers have never needed to use in their careers. Miraculously, the aviation industry possesses some analog contingency procedures. These were maintained after 9/11 and the lessons learned from various GPS failure scenarios. But they are slower, more prone to errors, and significantly more taxing on already overworked controllers. It takes 6 hours to clear the sky. During that time, no cargo planes fly. No passenger flights arrive. and 5 million people a day who were scheduled to fly simply don't fly. The global air cargo sector, which moves $6 trillion worth of goods a year, including medical supplies, electronics, and fresh food, comes to a complete standstill 6 hours in. And now the public begins to understand that this is not a temporary glitch. Television broadcasts, which still exist for those with antenna-based TV, are reporting the outage. Radio stations are active, but social media, news websites, streaming services, and online communication are all dark. The information vacuum is enormous. And into that vacuum, rumors flood. Word spreads that banks are closed. People hear that ATMs are out of cash. Someone says the government is declaring martial law. Someone else says it's a nuclear attack. Without internet-based fact-checking and without official digital communications, there's no way to rapidly correct misinformation. It spreads at the speed of human conversation, block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood. Supermarkets face an immediate crisis. Their point-of-sale systems are offline. Card readers don't work, but people still need food. Stores make a decision, cash only. But the problem is, most Americans carry less than $22 in cash on a typical day. A 2023 survey by Pew Research found that 41% of Americans in a typical week make zero cash transactions. In an instant, nearly half the population cannot buy anything. Panic buying begins. People raid store shelves not because food is scarce yet, but because they fear it will be. Stores rapidly deplete their inventory of non-perishables, bottled water, and batteries. Emergency services begin feeling the pressure. Hospitals rely on internet-connected medical record systems, Epic, Cerner, and similar platforms to access patient histories, medication records, allergy information, and lab results. These systems are down. Doctors and nurses revert to paper documentation, drastically slowing patient intake and increasing the risk of medical error. 911 call centers, many of which now use VoIP-based communication systems rather than traditional landlines, experience outages or degraded service in major metropolitan areas. 6 hours in. The world is still physically intact, but the social fabric is starting to tear. Here is something almost nobody thinks about. The modern food supply chain has almost zero buffer. The global logistics system operates on a principle called just-in-time delivery. It means that goods, food, medicine, fuel, electronics, are manufactured and shipped to arrive exactly when they are needed, with minimal stockpiling. This system is extraordinarily efficient in normal times. In an emergency, it is catastrophic, and it is entirely dependent on the internet. Cargo ships at sea use internet-connected navigation and communication systems to coordinate with port authorities. Without these systems, port scheduling breaks down. Ships that were days from docking do not know which berth to go to. Port cranes, which are increasingly automated and network-controlled, stop operating or require manual override. The Port of Los Angeles, the largest in the United States, processes approximately $300 billion in goods annually. It slows to a fraction of capacity. Trucking logistics companies use internet-connected dispatch systems to route their fleets. The largest operators, Amazon Logistics, UPS, FedEx, J.B. Hunt, all rely on real-time internet routing. Without it, drivers don't know where to go. Loads sit at distribution centers undelivered. Fuel delivery slows significantly. Petroleum distribution also uses internet-connected dispatch and tracking. Fuel trucks stop being efficiently routed. Gas stations that are already low on fuel begin to run dry faster than they can be resupplied.
By hour 12, the supply chain is not broken, but it is grinding to a halt. Food exists in warehouses, medicine exists in distribution centers, but it is not moving. And it won't move until someone solves a problem nobody planned for. 24 hours, one full day without the internet. By this point, every major stock exchange on the planet has halted trading. The New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, the London Stock Exchange, the Tokyo Stock Exchange, the Hong Kong Exchange, all suspended. Not because of a financial crash, because there is no mechanism to trade without internet infrastructure. Banks close their physical branches, not because they're out of money, but because their employees cannot verify balances, process loans, or operate wire transfers without their core banking software, all of which requires internet connectivity to function. Airports around the world are empty. The 100,000 aircraft that were in the air 24 hours ago have landed. No new flights have departed. Travelers are stranded. International cargo has stopped. Governments activate emergency protocols. In the United States, the president would trigger the Continuity of Operations Plan, COOP, which provides backup procedures for government functions in catastrophic scenarios. But even COOP was not designed for a scenario where internet infrastructure itself is gone. Many interagency communications rely on classified internet protocols.
Military command and control networks, though they have more hardened redundancies than civilian infrastructure, begin experiencing communication challenges. Satellite communication is partially intact, but the software-defined networks that distribute and interpret that data have degraded. In hospitals, the situation is becoming critical. Medical imaging, X-rays, MRIs, CT scans, is stored and transmitted digitally. Without internet connectivity, a doctor in one part of a hospital cannot see imaging results from the radiology department. Pharmacies cannot electronically confirm prescriptions. Blood bank inventory management systems are offline. By hour 24, civilization has not ended, but it has revealed its single most catastrophic design flaw. It was built on the assumption that the internet would always be there. Day 3. And now the supply chain failure that began as a slowdown has become a crisis. Fresh food disappears first. Produce, dairy, and meat require a continuous cold chain, temperature-controlled transport and storage to remain safe. Without internet-connected logistics systems operating at full capacity, delays compound. Refrigerated trucks sit idle. Distribution centers back up. In cities, supermarket shelves that were already depleted by panic buying are not being restocked at normal rates. The visual of empty shelves triggers more panic buying of whatever remains. Water systems come under pressure. Municipal water treatment facilities use internet-connected SCADA systems, supervisory control and data acquisition, to monitor water quality, manage chemical dosing, and control pumping. Many of these systems have manual overrides, but they require trained operators to run them manually, and they can only maintain operations for so long. In rural areas, the situation is different. Communities with wells, local farms, and existing cash economies are more insulated. The digital dependency is lower. People adapt faster. Small towns that maintained local trade networks are better positioned than sprawling metropolitan areas that import 100% of their food through internet-coordinated supply chains. The divide between self-sufficient and digitally dependent communities becomes immediately, viscerally clear. Theft is rising. Not random, targeted. Pharmacies are hit first. People who depend on daily medication, insulin-dependent diabetics, cardiac patients, those with psychiatric medication needs,
are desperate. The social contract that holds communities together begins showing stress fractures. 1 week, and now the physical infrastructure of modern civilization is beginning to fail. Power grids are one of the most complex internet-dependent systems in existence. Modern electrical grids use real-time internet-connected sensors, automated switching systems, and predictive load management to balance electricity supply and demand across thousands of miles. Without internet connectivity, grid operators lose the granular, real-time visibility they depend on. Some grids begin experiencing instability, not because they lack electricity, power plants are still running, but because the software that manages distribution across the network is degraded. Localized outages begin appearing in major metropolitan areas as grid operators struggle to manage the system manually. Water treatment, as mentioned, is deteriorating in some areas. Cities with older infrastructure and more manual override capacity are holding steady. Cities that fully modernized to SCADA-dependent systems without maintaining manual fallback procedures are in serious trouble. Natural gas distribution, which also uses internet-connected monitoring systems, is experiencing similar pressures. Hospitals are in crisis. ICUs are running on backup protocols. Supply chains for surgical materials, medications, and blood products have been severely disrupted. Elective procedures stopped on day 1. By day 7, some non-elective procedures are being postponed due to material shortages, a decision that will cost lives. The death toll is rising, not from violence, from cascading healthcare system failures. People who cannot access their medications, people who cannot receive dialysis at full capacity, people whose surgeries were delayed. The internet dying does not kill anyone directly, but its absence kills slowly, through the collapse of every system that modern healthcare depends on.
2 weeks, and something unexpected begins to happen. Humans adapt. They always do. Local economies begin to emerge. Farmers' markets, barter systems, and neighborhood trade networks spring up in communities across the world. People rediscover the value of physical skills. Mechanics who can fix engines without diagnostic software. Farmers who know how to manage their land without satellite weather data. Doctors who trained before electronic medical records became mandatory. Cash, physical currency, becomes the dominant medium of exchange, at least where it exists. In societies where physical currency was nearly eliminated, like Sweden or South Korea, the transition is far more painful. Trust becomes hyper-local. You trust your neighbor, your local merchant, the person you can see. Global trust, in corporations, in international systems, in institutions you interact with only digitally, collapses. Because those institutions are invisible. Paper comes back. Governments begin printing emergency physical credentials. Pharmacies dispense medications based on handwritten prescriptions. Doctors write notes by hand. Birth certificates, death records, property records, all of it goes back to paper filing. Radio becomes the dominant communication medium. AM radio, which can transmit over vast distances, becomes the primary source of coordinated public information. Communities that were geographically isolated, rural towns, island communities, areas with existing local food production, are more stable than those that were deeply integrated into global supply chains. The world is not ending, but it is restructuring, and the process is painful in ways nobody anticipated. 30 days without the internet. The global digital economy, estimated at $15 trillion in value, has effectively ceased to exist. Cryptocurrency, which many believed would outlast traditional financial systems, is worthless without internet connectivity. Digital assets cannot be accessed. Cloud-stored wealth is inaccessible. Large multinational corporations have largely ceased functioning. They were built on global supply chains, digital communication, and internet-based coordination. Without those, they cannot operate at scale. Some have pivoted to regional operations. Most have effectively collapsed. Local production has surged. Small manufacturers, local farms, regional trade networks. These have expanded to fill gaps left by the failure of global supply chains. The economy is smaller. It is slower. It is more local. And it is, in some ways, more human. The political landscape has shifted dramatically. National governments that derived legitimacy partly from their ability to provide digital services, benefit payments, tax systems, regulatory enforcement, have lost influence. Local governments, city councils, community leaders, those with physical presence and face-to-face accountability, have gained it. The 8 billion people on Earth are still here. The planet is intact. Food is being grown. Water is being treated in most places. Medical care is being provided at reduced capacity, but it is being provided. Humanity has not collapsed. But the world of before, the connected, instantaneous, globally synchronized world, is gone. And every expert who has studied this scenario agrees on one thing. We would not rebuild it the same way. Because now we know how fragile it was. The internet was not just a tool we used. It was the circulatory system of modern civilization. The way blood carries oxygen to every organ in your body, the internet carried data to every system in the modern world. Finance, healthcare, food, energy, communication, defense, education, commerce. We built the most advanced civilization in human history on top of a single infrastructure that had no analog fallback, no distributed redundancy for a total failure scenario, and no emergency plan that assumed it could disappear entirely. And the truly unsettling part, this is not hypothetical. Large-scale internet disruptions have happened. The 2021 Facebook outage took down a significant portion of internet traffic for 6 hours. The 2024 CrowdStrike software failure brought down 8.5 million Windows devices, disrupting airlines, hospitals, and financial institutions worldwide. These were minor failures compared to what we've described, and they caused billions of dollars in damage and significant human suffering. A sustained, global internet blackout remains the single most underplanned catastrophic risk in the modern world. Not nuclear war, not pandemic, not climate change. The internet going dark.
Humanity would survive the internet going dark, but not easily, not cleanly, and not as the civilization we currently are. The death toll in the first 30 days would be significant, driven by healthcare system failures, supply chain disruptions, and civil unrest, not by direct internet-related causes. The economic damage would be measured in the tens of trillions of dollars. The geopolitical consequences would reshape national boundaries and global power structures. And when, if, the internet came back, we would rebuild it differently, with more redundancy, with analog fallbacks, with a healthier understanding that dependency on a single infrastructure, no matter how sophisticated, is a civilization-scale vulnerability. The internet is not going to disappear tomorrow, probably. But if it did, you've just seen exactly what would happen, hour by hour, day by day. The question worth asking is not, could this happen? The question is, what would you do if it did? If losing the internet is this catastrophic, consider this. The internet runs on electricity. What happens when the power grid goes down? Not just your neighborhood, the entire grid. every city, every country, simultaneously? The answer is darker than anything we covered today. And we're covering it in the next video. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because that video goes live this week. And after watching this one, you'll want to be there.